if you only had 1 minute to tell the audience how to launch and grow a successful online business, what would you advise them to do?
Ooh, that's a good question. Starting off strong. Um, for a successful online business, I would probably just go down online service business. So that's either selling an agency like B2B agency services, or you have some sort of expertise around like fitness, some sort of like consulting, maybe you have a personal brand and you could sell coaching. So for all intents and purposes, I'll just start with the agency. Uh, I would basically just find other B2B agencies that offer some sort of professional service, preferably something that you can target with Facebook ads. And then I would immediately just start getting a business credit card, and I would just run ads to book more sales calls with my ideal client profile. So like, let's say it's like fucking dentists, plumbers, roofers, some sort of business. I would just spend money to get them on the phone with me, and then I would sell them something. And I've done this before, where I sold things I really didn't know how to do already, and then I would learn once they paid me. And then if you can't do the service, just return the money. So I would basically just run ads, send emails, or cold DMs. So one paid strategy and one outbound strategy. And I would only focus on setting and closing appointments for my offer after you create some sort of offer, if that makes any sense.
Now let's talk about this idea of selling something first and then figuring out the service delivery later. Because I love this approach. It's very funny to me and very apt. So tell us a little bit about when you did this and in what context it was.
Okay, so I did this once, and I've had multiple marketing agencies before. My very first marketing agency was an e-commerce marketing agency. In that business, I had a business partner, shout out Kendall Shaw, really great dude. I was more of the sales operations side, and he was the fulfillment. So I would be selling deals, and he would know how to fulfill, and then eventually hired media buyers who would fulfill the service that we sold. And then eventually I left and I started my own marketing agency targeting mortgage loan officers. And I had no fucking clue how to run Facebook ads for loan officers, but I was confident in my ability to learn. So I just literally just started selling refinance leads, lead generation for these loan officers. I started sending cold emails and running paid ads to book sales calls with them. I closed them on like 6K 6-month packages. So 6K pay in full up front, 6-month packages. And then once they paid me, I would Google like, how do I run lead generation ads for mortgage loan officers? And then I had a friend who also ran B2B lead generation ads. And I just paid him for an hour consulting, learned it pretty easy. And that's how I started my business.
And just so I fully understand what was going on. So you're essentially sending cold emails to loan officers and then saying like, hey, I can run Facebook ads for you to get you more leads.
So this was honestly the greatest. Like, I didn't realize how good of an opportunity I had back when I was running this business. But it was around the time of COVID when interest rates were super duper low. So in my head, I was like, what is just a really great offer that everybody needs? And everybody and their mom was refinancing their house because who doesn't want like a 3% mortgage? So then I realized like, okay, all these loan officers are printing money. Let me just help them get more refinance leads. And so I just sent out a shit ton of cold emails, initially just testing the offer, being like, yo, I can help. I have some like refinance leads. I'm looking for somebody in your area to send them to. I didn't already have the leads. I just basically said, oh, I have some leads in your area. We're looking for a partner to send them to. Would you be interested? And then I hopped on a call with them, and then I kind of bait and switched it. And I was like, oh, okay, actually, want me to just set up your Facebook ads to run the lead generation for you. And that worked extremely well because at the time, the offer in the market was so hot that like anybody with a pulse probably could have done it. It's basically about finding a really good offer and then kind of just like ramming volume until you get enough results. So with that business, I got it up to around like 45K a month, around like 35K of that being profit.
Yeah, I remember something, and this reminds me of something you told me in the past, is that a mediocre salesperson or even a bad salesperson on a great offer can often outperform like an expert salesperson in like a mediocre offer. So tell us a little bit about like why that is the case and like how to find these like grand slam offers.
Yeah, exactly. So this is probably more applicable to high ticket closers as well. So if you're a closer or setter, the more expensive of an item you're selling, the more lucrative you can make as a high ticket closer. So the best closer in the world selling like a really cheap product to a broke audience might make like 5-10 grand a month, where I've seen like the worst performing sales rep on a top team make like 15 grand a month. Obviously, like, they want him to be making 20-25 grand a month as a closer, but you're kind of capped in the opportunity vehicle you are in. So like sometimes your skills can cap out in the opportunity vehicle you're in. So it makes sense to try and transition to a better vehicle. So it's why like people who sell like enterprise SaaS plans, like the account executives there can make shit tons of money because the thing that they're selling has a massive lifetime value.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And for people that come from maybe like a dating realm, it's like, hey, if you go to the top nightclub and everyone there is a 9 or 10, you know,
Yeah.
or if you go to a crappy bar and people there are only 6, it doesn't matter how good your game is. You can only cap.
No matter how much of a Casanova you are, if you're at like a grungy like dive bar with no like cool people, you're not really gonna do anything. Versus you could probably just be around a table at like a tier 1 club and meet some cool people. So yeah, the analogy fits very well.
Yeah, it's like, hey, bouncers are closing, so to speak, and
very
like,
interesting.
Never consider them top.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. So you have this, Facebook ads, and you said that this was like the best time in the world. So tell us a little bit about what happened with that agency, and then like.
Okay, yeah, I'll tell you. So this is actually really good advice to anybody who's starting their first business. When I talk to my friends who are trying to start a business, the advice I give them is, if you're like an actual entrepreneur, your first business is probably not going to be your last business. You're going to go through multiple iterations. So it's basically just trying things out. So first, I had like an e-commerce marketing agency that I joined as the COO to a dude named Kendall Shaw around the time of COVID. And that gave me like a really great lesson on how to scale a marketing agency. We ended up growing up to around like 110, 120 grand a month in revenue. And we ended up hiring like a team of like 25 plus people. It was like kind of crazy at the time. And so I didn't have the largest equity stake. I didn't own 100% of the business. And so in my head, I kind of view agencies as a pure cash flow vehicle. Like I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm going to sell my 30% for something crazy later down the line, because that's just not what the agency business model is meant to do. In my opinion, if you're running like a local lead gen business. So I was like, okay, let me go after the mortgage niche, because I just saw people who were like not the brightest crushing in that niche, to be honest. So I was like, okay, let me go and do it. And then I immediately saw success in that niche just because the offer was so hot. And so I scaled that business up, was sending cold emails, running ads to book some calls, and I was taking all the calls, fulfilling everything. And I kind of learned from my first agency that I didn't want to build a huge team and have like large overhead. So I just had me and a team of virtual assistants, and it was going fantastic until the Fed started raising interest rates. And I didn't realize, like at the time when I was like scaling the business and the offer was going great, I had a pretty big ego, I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, oh dude, I'm fucking crushing it. I'm making like fucking like doctor money. And I was like, okay, I'm like 21 years old. I was like, I'm the king of the world. And then when the Fed raised interest rates, nobody wants to refi into like a 5% mortgage at all. So within the span of 2-3 months, almost all my clients, the marketing campaigns that I was running for them that were working really well, they stopped working. And so I essentially lost most of my clients because refinances it was a tough time. And honestly, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because now scaling everything up and losing it made me realize that my ego shouldn't be attached to the results that I'm getting, but the inputs that I'm putting in. And when I rebuilt my business, which is after I scaled that mortgage agency, I realized I had the skill of customer acquisition. Like I could realistically acquire customers for businesses through paid ads, writing sales letters, sales processes, stuff like that. And I started just doing that for other businesses in other niches. So worked in like dental, e-com, Cairo, real estate agents, and I started working with other agencies as a growth consultant type thing. And that went really well for a while, until I started working with some info businesses who are selling like high-end coaching, consulting, think like 10K consulting packages. And what I quickly realized is I much rather preferred working with info businesses than B2B agencies. Not that agencies suck, but it's because the bottleneck in an agency is not acquisition, it's the fulfillment. So I would help these agencies acquire a bunch of clients, and then their systems and processes weren't built to fulfill that demand. So there was just like a cap on the amount of clients that they could take on. But with info businesses, since you're selling like consulting and it's not a done for you service, you're able to have much more leverage and scale way more easily. And the profit margins are a decent amount higher. So then I started working with info businesses and got into this space. And now I kind of work with some 7 and 8 figure businesses like Charlie Morgan, Joel Kaplan, Liam Otley, School of Hard Knocks, like other businesses like that. And I much rather prefer that. Even I do like working with agencies still, but only if the agency's like not like an Iman Gaji kid in his mom's basement. It's like gotta be like an actual agency with like employees and shit like that.
Now tell us a little bit about like what do you do for these specific info product agencies? Like how are you helping them out?
Okay, cool. So the main thing is it depends on what they need. If they're already doing like high 7 figures, around 8 figures, I kind of just plug in and figure out what are the things that they need that they aren't doing already. So usually that's like fixing their copy. It's kind of like CRO, which is like conversion rate optimization. So I can go in and basically be like, okay, let me split test your VSL and see if we can increase the booking rate. Let's see if we can add in email flows to increase the email lead opt-in to booking rate. Other things that I'll help do is like honestly just bully them into increasing their prices. I'm not gonna lie. So for example, when I first started working with Charlie Morgan, he was charging around I think like 5,800 or 6,800, and then I just brought up to him. I was like, "Yo, I think he was already thinking about this too." But I was like, "Yo, dude, let's just bump it up to 9,800, like a 10K package," because that's what one of my other clients was selling at the time. And after a little bit of hesitancy, he ended up doing it, and they actually increased their close rate, which is nuts. Things like that, where it's basically small tweaks you can make in the business. And if they're growing their sales team, sometimes I'll help recruit staff, setters, closers into the business. It's kind of just full stack. So ideally, if a person was doing like around 50K a month, like from organic, what I'd probably do is I'd come in, show them how to run ads, build out like a solid sales asset, like a video sales letter, and build and staff like a sales team so they can get themselves out of closing and then scale the business by working on it instead of in it.
Yeah, let's go through some of these different points that you mentioned. So obviously copywriting, you're fixing up their landing page and their sales assets. So tell us a little bit about like common mistakes you see people have on their landing pages or VSLs.
That's a good one. One of the things that I'm realizing nowadays is honestly, people over rely on a VSL too much nowadays, where in 2018 to 2021, there's a dude named Cole Gordon, who a lot of people in the info space probably know. And he really pioneered what's called like a direct VSL, where it's like the way you scale a business is all you need is like an opt-in page, a VSL, an application, and a calendar. And you just like Chad scale the fuck out of ads to that. And that method works really well in the beginning, but over time, you're going to see more diminishing returns on that VSL as you scale your spend. And this is the issue I see a lot of businesses do is let's say I'm the only closer, like I'm the founder, I'm closing, so I don't have to pay any like sales team commission or anything. And like let's say I'm running ads and I'm getting like a 4 or 5x return. And you're like, okay, I'm going to scale. Now I spend more money on ads, and as you spend more money on ads, your returns typically dip. So your returns on your ads dip. You add in a closing and setting team, so now you're like have less like top you. That's like 15% off the top of your business because like 5% for a closer, 10% for a setter. No, reverse. 10% for a closer, 5% for a setter. They're probably not going to close at the same rate you are unless you bring in like a rock star. And so what I just see is people are just too aggressive with scaling only with paid ads. And that's why in like 2024, most of my clients, they scale mainly with content and ads together. So you don't have to like keep pitching and selling people that you have no clue who they are. They don't know, like, and trust you. The close rates are lower. So that's the main thing is people kind of only rely on having one VSL and running all that traffic to it. Where what I recommend is just creating a bunch of different VSLs and just uploading them to YouTube and treating every like piece of content as its own individual sales letter. And over time, those sales assets and things will stack, and then you'll just have people book with you, and they're just layup closes where like there's no objections. It's like super easy to close them.
Yeah, so we talked about the reduction in efficacy of the ads. And is this because, like, hey, when you're first running the ad, Facebook knows exactly who's going to want to click on it? You'll probably get
Yeah.
higher quality leads
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
as.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you have like a crazy large total addressable market, and even in those cases, with your first like 200, $300 a day in ad spend, like especially like Facebook will put you in front of like your ideal avatar because their AI is that good. But as you start spending more, uh, your returns typically dip unless you're like aggressively testing a bunch of different ads, a bunch of different interests, and you're just like a cracked media buyer. But even in those cases, there's only so much you can do. So that's why I'm a big fan of just like adding in content, because that's what's going to help your margins as you scale.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this like content strategy. So you're not only running ads, but then you're also doing content. Tell us a little bit about like, is the content trying to just bring new people in, or are your ads trying to push people to your content and then
Yeah,
that builds a
it's a mix of
relationship?
both. Yeah, it's a mix of both. So as you run ads, you're going to get more people into your funnel when you get their name, phone number, email, or they like follow you on social media after they see your ads. So you putting out more content will kind of just nurture them over time instead of just having a bunch of setters just dial them and just shove an offer down their throat. Um, you can still get away with doing like the VSL ad thing in like less saturated markets. But in 2024, a lot of the markets are more saturated now, and people have seen the exact same offer a million times. So you kind of have to do other stuff to set yourself apart, to get them to trust you. Because we're kind of in a trust recession. There's not as much free money around. Interest rates are a bit higher. Access to credit's lower. So to get people to pay you like 10 grand, 15 grand for a service, it's a bit harder now than it used to be. So that's why I really recommend content. And that's why most of the clients that I work with, that I want to work with, already have a base of content, and it makes everything else so much easier.
And you mentioned that this kind of content I'll use my own term here, and maybe it's already exists in the industry. It's like the sneaky VSL, where it's like
Yeah.
each thing is just a subtle sales letter. So if you have people already creating content, how would you recommend that they make it this like sneaky VSL or this sneaky sales letter? Because you do write YouTube videos for people.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I would do is I would create like long form educational videos, and kind of just 80% of the video is actually just educational about like case study, how I did this in this amount of time, or how X person went from this state to desired state. Videos like that. Or like basically what I would find is just the keywords in your niche, and then try and rank for those keywords on YouTube, and just mainly just provide value. And then the last 20% of it, it can just be a soft call to action, and people will just book through that. And then if you want to do more of a direct approach, then you can just retarget all those people with ads who viewed your content with a more direct offer. But instead of just leading with a direct offer, it's much more efficient, in my opinion, to have them just organically know, like, and trust you, and then come in. Especially like nowadays, if you're in any like niche worth being in, there's probably other people are also targeting that niche. So
Yeah.
it's what helps you stand out.
Now, is there a specific kind of content that you see your clients or you see in the industry working particularly well? I see like Miro boards and like Figma diagrams everywhere.
Yeah.
Not sure why that all popped up, but maybe you
Yeah,
will.
exactly. Okay, yeah. So those like Miro board VSLs work really well. Honestly, what people can do if you're really like low effort, but like high signal, I guess, is just creating a sales letter on Google Doc and just Loom recording that and just going over that. You don't really want the content that's more viral style content. So, for example, I was talking to one of my friends. His name's Pierre Cowrie, and he works with a dude who sells like a make money online offer, showing people how to scale e-commerce brands with ads. But a lot of his content is more like flashy, like showing off his like Lambo, his Urus and stuff on like TikTok. His YouTube videos are that as well. They get a shit ton of views, but they attract like dummies. Not gonna lie, like they attract like poor people. Because like yeah, but like the people who are willing to watch like a fucking Google Doc VSL or like a Miro board presentation or like a long form educational video, it'll 100% get less views, but those views are going to be 10x the the value of a more viral style video. And then you can kind of find like a happy medium where you kind of like, for example, one of my clients, Charlie Morgan, does this pretty well now, where he's targeting kind of like the keywords millionaire, money, stuff like that, broad keywords. And then he'll just break down like high level business concepts in an educational format. So he has more of the viral style, I guess, like potential, because it's like a broader keyword talking about like millionaire and money. But then he, through his like long form educational like whiteboard videos, he's able to still get high quality viewers. So that's like a good way to balance it.
Yeah, I remember interviewing this guy Helmy, and he has this YouTube funnel, and he thinks about it like top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel. He's like, your like tutorials will be bottom of funnel. You're like, I forget the exact breakdown, but like the top of funnels, like, you know, how I got my first 10K client, like things that appeal to way more people, and then tries to work them down.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's 100% the thing I've realized, because I don't know, most people, they assume people with big social media followings make the most money, but I've actually seen the people who make the most money are people who have like 20K subscribers on YouTube, but it's like a very niche audience, or like 30K followers on Instagram, but it's a very, very niche, die-hard, high quality audience. When you go broader, you can't just charge like a high ticket one-off price, because those people aren't really like an ideal fit for that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I'll give people a really simple example. So I have these Latin American comedy accounts. I have over like 170,000 followers. I probably made like less than 3K from all the ad revenue that runs on those things. But I was on YouTube today looking up Close a CRM, and there's this company that probably has less than like 600 followers, but they're all Close tutorials. So I'm like, these people are probably they're probably printing. Like,
yeah. Dude, it's crazy. So one of my friends, his entire business model is he just affiliates for Go High Level. He doesn't do anything else but that. And then with around like 30, 50K subscribers on YouTube, which is still a decent amount in like the software niche, he was making like multiple six figures a month affiliating a software. And so like, dude, it's kind of nuts. Where I have friends, like one of my friends, I'm not sure if I'm going to specifically say his name. He has like 5K subscribers on YouTube. And it's his primary lead source for his channel. And he makes anywhere from like 70 to 100 grand a month just off that, which is nuts.
Yeah, it just so depends on who you're specifically talking to. So I know you're working with 7 to 8 figure businesses. You're doing the copywriting. We talked about that. You bully them into raising their prices so they can make more money. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the split testing of the VSL, because this is something I'm not too familiar with, and maybe other people aren't as well. Like, talk to us. How does that work?
Okay, yeah. So split testing of VSL, typically what I do first is we'll split test the ads that lead to the VSL, and just have a control. And then once we split test and find like a winning ad, then we'll just go to the VSL. And then basically the main thing that we split test is the hook, like the first 15 to 30 seconds. And so once you basically, you test one variable at a time. So it's like initially we'll test the ad, then we'll maybe test the opt-in page, like the headlines and stuff. And then after that, we'll test like, okay, let's test different VSLs. And all it is really just like being like, okay, this is the first 15, 30 seconds of this VSL. Let's create a variation and then drive traffic to the two ones and figure out which one's performing better. And then that's how essentially split testing works. Yeah, it's not too complicated, but it's mainly just figuring out what pain points or offers or messaging that will resonate with the audience.
Now, because I live with Sean, I've heard many things while he talks on the phone and just in his life in general. So I know he deals with different kinds of funnels as well than just, you know, your general book a call funnel, than your general just YouTube funnel. So tell us a little bit about like some of the funnels, maybe community funnels or like social funnels that you're seeing out in the ecosystem that you're pretty interested in, maybe challenge funnels.
Okay, yeah. So there's 2 funnels right now that I really like. One is probably better for beginners, and then one is probably better for people who are just trying to Chad scale. It's like the funnel Alex Ramosi used to take one of his companies to 100 mil a year, I believe. So the first funnel for beginners was more of a content social funnel where you're just creating ads on like Instagram and YouTube, and you're running ads directly to your content to get views, like specifically to get like ideal views. So it's not even driving anybody to a landing page. It's just like driving people to check out your Instagram profile or click on a YouTube video of yours. And And that's really good for beginners in the beginning because it just incentivizes them to put out content. And then over time, like you can graduate to more advanced funnels. Like if you have like a whole sales team and go to like a VSL. But the funnel that I'm actually the most interested in right now is basically what I call an upgrade funnel. So what the funnel essentially is how do I put this? It's basically running a webinar to a $2,000 product, and the only goal is to break even on the webinar. So you're basically just like thinking like, oh, let's spend $100,000 a month to get $100,000 a month back, and you're just getting a bunch of purchasers of these like 2K products. And then the goal is once you have these purchasers for 2K, have your sales team call up all the purchasers and upgrade them to book a call and then buy the high ticket. So it's basically having a clear front end and a clear back end. So Hermosi does this with his company. He's not that public about it, but it's called publishing.com. They run a shit ton of all paid ads to like an auto webinar where they sell like a 2K offer. And then after they purchase, I believe they upsell them into a 10 or 12K offer. And the idea is, oh, you call them up and basically be like, oh, you already spent $2,000 on the webinar. We'll just get you into the high ticket at the difference. And they only basically pay the difference between the webinar that they bought and then the high ticket. And so this allows you to kind of just outspend your competition, because your competition that's trying to like make a profit on the front end, you're just like, no, we can just break even on the front end and then make all our money in the next 3 to 6 months as they ascend. And so that strategy works extremely, extremely well. And it also kind of mirrors most of my clients who are the most successful, where they have a clear front end like hero product, and then they have a back end product. And by having that structure and having a clear front end product and a back end product, it allows you to massively increase your lifetime value of a customer. And that's essentially the only thing that matters in a business is what is your CAC, like your customer acquisition cost, and what is your LTV, and what is the lifetime value of your customer. And so going into a business, those are essentially the two metrics I look at most. Like what are we acquiring customers at, and how much do we value a customer? And by creating like a back end offer. So for example, Joel Kaplan, one of my clients, he has like a $36,000 a year mastermind. So it's like a 10K offer on the front end. And then once you get good results, they'll upsell you to a 36K a year back end. And like that back end is all profit because you already acquired the customer. So doing things like that and figuring out the economics of your business and how to structure different packages is another thing that I see that 8-figure businesses do that primarily 7-figure businesses don't do.
And when should, let's take a 7-figure business as an example. We don't need to name any names, but let's imagine like when should they add in that $36,000 mastermind or that like bigger, like ultra high ticket item?
That's a good question. I think it's once you can reliably get really good results on your front end product. And so the goal of the back end product is to solve the customer's next problem. So for example, let's say I'll use an example. Like let's say Cardinal Mason, if you know him, he has like a really great program called Copy MBA. I actually even referred my brother into it. I went through it like a while back to just learn some basic copywriting. The goal of Copy MBA is, okay, make like 10 to 30K a month as a copywriter. So let's say once he gets his students to hit that 10 to 30K a month mark, now he can upsell. And like once he's reliably getting good results on the front end, then it's like, okay, let's create a back end product that will help them get from like 30K a month to 100,000 a month. And basically be like, oh, instead of just learning copy, we'll also add in how to build funnels, how to run ads, skill stacking. So for example, for Joel Kaplan, one of my clients, his front end offer is, how to basically scale your agency to 100,000 a month in revenue. That's the goal. And on that 100,000 a month in revenue, you'll probably be making like 30 to 50,000 a month in profit. If you have like a big team and like business partners and shit. Then the goal on their back end offer is, we'll show you how to hire and create systems, operations, and procedures and stuff like that to where you can extract yourself from the business. So you're not taking sales calls anymore. You're not talking to clients anymore. So the goal isn't as much now, let me get more clients. It's let me build systems and fire myself. So it's solving the next problem that those business owners have, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I could even see like even more expensive masterminds. Like, and then here's how we get you to sell that business.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm not even joking. That's one of the things that they do inside of the mastermind is they have like business brokers come in and they'll specifically tell you, oh, this is how you structure an agency to get the largest amount of like the largest multiple.
Yeah, it's quite interesting what you were saying about going into these higher level masterminds when you've accelerated past a certain revenue target where you're like, okay, first we taught them copywriting, then we taught them ads and funnels and this and that. And that's kind of essentially the path you followed, no?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I was able to learn so much so quickly in the online business space is because I really was just perfectly fine spending money on skill acquisition and spending like 10K for a coaching program, it was my business paying it, but it was like spending 36 grand on a mastermind or stuff like that. Or spending, now what I typically do more often is just spending like $1,000, $2,000 for like a 1 hour, 2 hour call with one-on-one support, things like that. So typically what I've seen is by being able to skill stack and just learn more and more skills over time, that's been how I've been able to be more valuable to businesses. And also in the masterminds, like I'll be able to meet maybe one person who becomes a client and now the mastermind paid for itself.
Yeah, another thing, Sean is probably undercrediting himself, but he is very good at fostering and building relationships because like he's on the phone all day talking with people and like connecting closers to other companies and helping with hiring. So how did you kind of improve your ability to connect people? And is it just like, hey, I went to a lot of masterminds and I kept in touch? I know you have like strategies where you try to find like kind of the head guy, maybe the second guy.
Okay, I'll give you like a 80-20. So I have one really good friend named Abel Paul George, who during high school, I saw how he went about networking. So some background on my friend Abel, he ended up becoming like a designer for Donda, Kanye's company. And the way he went about it was he would start on fucking like Reddit threads, find people who are like on the outside of like Kanye's circle, and he would view it as an onion. And he would slowly work his way through the onion, if that makes any sense, and figure out like, okay, let me meet one person, figure out who are the people they're connected with, let me connect with them, and always lead with providing value. And only reach out if you can provide value is the main thing that I've seen. And that's kind of how I view relationships is I'll join like a mastermind or a coaching program or get introduced to somebody. And anytime I see that there's anything I could help them with, whether it's like they're looking for salespeople, whether they want to get connected to like a good media buyer or something like that, I'll always just be very generous with my resources. Just because like throwing people into a group chat who might be able to provide value to each other, that looks good on me just because I'm able to provide the network or resource or stuff like that. I think it's basically always just figuring out how can I lead with value, provide value, and not really look to take anything in the short term. And increasing like when I talk to some of my friends, they're like, "Oh, Sean, you never ask for anything when you do all this type of stuff." Like, and it makes me seem like a saint, like I'm not that greedy. But in actuality, I'm actually way more greedy than the people who are just short-term thinking. It's just that my time horizon on when I think about relationships is like 10, 20 years, if that makes any sense. So if you're like viewing networking and relationships of like, oh, I'm gonna meet this person, I'm gonna get some value out of them in the next like 3 months or something like that, that's cool and all. But if you increase the time horizon on when you think of networking, you're just like, okay, let me just keep providing value to this person. Like I've known this person for 2 years now I can make an ask and it won't even feel like an ask, if that makes any sense. So I'm not sure if that fully answers your question, but that's kind of my mentality about it.
Now, coming from the third party perspective and looking at Sean, so Sean was going up to New York. He was trying to get into some of the nightclub scene. And I remember he was mentioning a bunch of guys from a coaching program that I was once a part of and still I'm very close with. And I was like, oh, Sean, did you end up joining MOA? And he's like, no, I just kind of know who the top 10% of guys in any program are. I just reach out to them with value and they respond to me. I'm like, oh, well, Sean just saved himself like $7K probably.
Okay, yeah. So to talk on that, there's a really good program out there that it's called Men of Action, run by a dude named Michael Sartain. A lot of his free information is fucking fantastic, and it basically goes about how to position yourself and showcase yourself in the best way as a man and how to basically network and stuff. Obviously, like I could join the coaching program, which I'm still thinking about potentially. But what's easier for me to do is just to look in the coaching program, see who are the case studies, who are the people that he's hailing as, these are my best students. And then I'll be like, okay, I'll be fucking DM these people. By doing that, I was able to network and meet like a lot of people. And so a good example of this is we have a mutual friend named Shanka Paul, who's one of my favorite people I've ever met. And so he was at MOA, one of their like star students or whatever. I just connected with him while he was down in Miami, and we were just like acquaintances. I see he's moving down to Medellin, and like while he's like flying from Miami to Medellin, I just hop into his DMs and I'm like, yo, dude, I know hella people in Medellin. Let me introduce you. And then I introduce him to like a decent amount of people in Medellin. And then like slowly over time, he's like, oh, dude, I'm looking for a closing position. And I know he's a really good closer. And so I'm like, oh, dude, one of my clients is looking for a closer. And I was able to help him get onto a closing role where he'd probably be making like multi-six figures. And so then just through doing all of that, like he's able to connect me to people in his circle. And then also it's also a benefit to where like if I DM any of his friends on Instagram, it'll also say, oh, also mutuals with X, Y, and Z person. And that's like an honest signal of like, oh, people are like, okay, he knows Shanka, I'll give him my time.
Yeah, Instagram is a great networking tool. There's so many things you mentioned there that I want to touch on. The scraping, we'll call it scraping people's testimonial list is brilliant. Yes. I'm about to steal that whole thing. So one of the ways I got a lot of people on my Building Web3 podcast is I ended up taking conference speaking lists. And because I know all these people are interested in PR, and I reached out to them for podcasts, but it's so brilliant to do it for like the business perspective. Like if I want to, so I just interviewed Tristan. People, if they want to learn more about Men of Action, go back to Tristan's episode. Dude,
by the way, I've known Tristan for like a while.
I approached Tristan because Tristan's a lot easier to get to than Michael. Yeah. And if I interview Miguel as well, his other second hand, then it's so easy to get Michael. So people got to be strategic.
Michael's just a good guy in general. Like I feel like he'd come onto your podcast no matter what. Like he knows the value of, oh, I'm going on a podcast, I can clip this up. It's like also adding value to him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So people, be strategic with those relationships. And there's some absolute sauces to scrape the freaking testimonial list. That's brilliant.
And then also, so for example, and just having these relationships, I kind of view, this is nerdy as shit, but the value of a network is valued by the number of nodes in that network squared. It's like essentially like nerd speak, how you value the network.
Metcalfe's law or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So that just means like as you grow, each node is technically like a person who's has some form of value that you can arbitrage. And so as you meet more and more and more and more people, there's just an exponential effect to your relationships and network, to where I'll give you a good example. When I was in New York, I went and visited the WAP offices, and WAP is like a great company where a lot of people in the online business space use it to process their payments, host their business on it. And they were just telling me like, oh, dude, we're looking to get more people on our platform. And so I was like, dude, your platform is great. It has a bunch of benefits that a lot of my clients and people I know could use. And I just introduced them hella to WAP. And WAP was like, oh, Sean, like we can give you an affiliate on like whatever processing volume that they give. And I'm just like, I don't want to make money off some bullshit processing volume. Like I was just like, let me just add it to you guys, just pass on the discount to them. And I'm able to just provide value to both sides. And by doing things like that, you're able to just aggregate a lot of goodwill at once. And that's kind of the game, is how do you just add value and provide value to as many people as possible? And then the universe will conspire for your success.
Well, there's also the reciprocity. I can't even say that word.
Yeah.
Reciprocity bias, where if somebody's constantly doing nice things for you and you're not even returning the favor, it feels horrible. It's like anti-human to not do it. Like really only psychos can do it. So like Sean is building up all of this goodwill with people, and eventually they're like, I can't get Sean a client. Like, come on.
Exactly.
I can't be living in this level of debt,
Yeah. But then also I think that as when you're mentally doing this and just reaching out and providing value, and like sometimes you might reach out, try and help somebody do something for them and they don't do something in return, that's perfectly fine. Like when you give, you have to give without the expectation of anything in return. At least in like the short, like what people can smell that when you're like doing tit for tat or things like that. Like if you're going to give, actually give. Because if you're giving with the intention of, oh, I'm gonna give, so maybe this person will give me something back, you're not actually giving. You're subconsciously like taking. So and it's like also like hard on you mentally if you're like, oh, I'm doing all these things for all these people, they're not helping me out. Like then you're not actually like helping out of the goodness of your heart. So I think it's like people can sense when you're like genuine and you're like, nah, dude, like, oh, I see a way I can help you. And if they don't return the favor, that's perfectly fine. Like,
yeah. Now I want to get on to, because we talked a lot about business, it's time to talk about some other things. So there's a debate going on in this world of the internet money, lads, where should you get financially rich first before pursuing a social life? Or is it possible to pursue like health, wealth, relationships all at once? What's your take on this?
I think that you can do everything all at once. And I think that if you level up in one aspect, it will carry over to other aspects of your life. So for me, I started off in fitness. Like I used to be a really, 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 really skinny kid. Where Indian
Sean is jacked, by the way. For people that aren't watching the video, Sean is absolutely jacked.
Chill. Okay, maybe now. But I used to like literally Indian aunties would tell me like, "Oh, Sean, do you have cancer?" I'll be like, "Ah, fuck, I'm skinny." And so I worked on my fitness and stuff, and learning the discipline and everything that it took to change my body was the same things that carried over to discipline to grow my business and everything like that. And then I know a lot of dudes who will be like, oh, I'm gonna focus on money first. And then they feel like they need to be making $100,000 a month to be able to be worthy of having a girlfriend or something like that. Like, I think it might be a good pursuit to be like, oh, I want to be able to provide for my family. But if you fundamentally view yourself as less than because you're not like hella rich, I think that's not a good frame to live life in. Obviously, like there's seasons of your life where you're like, oh, this is the season of my life where I want to focus on my business. But if you feel like you can't get a girlfriend because you're not a multimillionaire, you're probably just lame.
Yeah.
And so like I think that you should be able to, like a dude named Rob the Bank. I fucking love his YouTube videos. He talks about this a lot, where it's an idea of just life maxing. Where for me in particular, the main areas of my life that I focus on relentlessly are health, wealth, and relationships. And they're also the main niches of the info product industry, I guess.
Shout out. Yeah.
Those are things where I will just basically just focus on how do I get better at these things. And my life has just benefited from that.
All right. But if you had to recommend them, would you recommend them start at health? I'll give you my stack rank real quick.
Okay, yeah.
I say start at health, like get a decent looking body because it's at least going to help you on the relationship front.
Yeah,
so we're leaving the relationships to the last. So it's health. You got to have a certain amount of wealth to even like leave the house.
Okay, yeah, I do understand that. Like, yeah, if you're completely dead broke, you probably shouldn't focus on dating. I've still been able to pull when I was in college and not like super wealthy, but that's like
I'm gonna have to shut this down because Sean is a male model. He's jacked and he's like 6. How tall are you, Sean?
Like 6'3", 6'4".
So if you're like a gremlin like me, don't be listening to Sean's advice on relationships just yet.
Oh, I'm dead. But okay, honestly, I'd say, I think you should get your money right to where you can take a girl out on dates that you're proud of. Whether it's even like fucking door dashing so you can take a girl out, like pay for her dinner and stuff, like just have enough money to where you're like, okay, I can at least like pay for the date. But I still think, 100%, I think you should have your health in check first, because I think that if you go to the gym consistently and you're able to transform your body in some regard, you will gain another level of respect for yourself to where you're like, I know I'm taking action. You can't fake that shit. So you're able to get a fundamental respect for yourself. And that's when I'd basically be like, okay, you respect yourself. You feel good in your own skin. You should probably now try and like focus on dating or making more money or stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to add even more into this because health, how long does it really take you to get jacked? It's probably an hour and a half of focus per day for the next 6 months, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't even have to go to the gym that often. You can go 3 days a week if you want to. It's more just like put the fucking fork down, fatty, or it's like, eat a little bit more, skinny boy. Like it's one or the other.
It's one or the other. Yeah. All right. So we just fixed health. And then how many guys do we know in this space that have gone from like 0 to, we'll even just be conservative, 30K in 2 years. So it's like, all right, so you forgot about the girls and you built your money, and through business, you're going to build relationships anyway. So I don't know. You probably come out of that and then you take the season of life where you're like, I'm going to do 6 months of hard dating and then, get back to business.
Yeah, exactly. And then for dating as a guy, there's kind of two ways you can go about it, in my opinion. One is, you know this from MOA, fix your fucking Instagram. And mainly just, fix your Instagram, reach out to girls that way. Or just like get good actually, like if you don't already, pay like a professional photographer to get good pictures of you and put them on a dating app, and you will get 10 times the results. Like that's the benefit I had, I'm not going to lie, of being a model, is I already had professional pictures. And so I would see my dating app versus one of my friends and basically be like, okay, it's like order of magnitude difference. And I've even seen some of my friends who were like pretty good looking guys, but they didn't have the best pictures already. They were just able to 10x the results just by literally paying a person to be like, yo, I'm trying to get pictures for my dating app. Because as a guy, that shit is what will change it. I don't really use dating apps as much now. I don't need to use them, to be blunt. And then if you don't use Instagram or dating apps, the other thing I'd recommend is just talking to people in real life. So if you see a girl on the street that's attractive, go up and don't be uncalibrated, but be like, hey, I thought you were really pretty. I would have regretted if I didn't come say hi. I know it's a very basic line, but the bar is so low nowadays where I have guy friends, especially like going to Georgia Tech. Like, dude, like I had a bunch of guy friends who would go to a bar, go to clubs, and not speak to a single girl because they're afraid and too much into their own head. And that's a common occurrence nowadays, where I have some female friends and they tell me like, yeah, like guys really don't approach me nowadays. So especially if you're in like a highly populated city like Miami, New York, Tampa, like wherever, just throw yourself out there and like actually like talk to girls in real life.
Yeah, and I would say if you have these like kind of super social anxieties, I was one of these guys. And I would say just get a dating coach. Like y'all are making internet money, baby. Just like go spend $3,000 on a dating coach and just get it fixed.
Fix it. Yeah, exactly. So that one sentence is something that like a lot of normies might be like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? But like in the back of my head, I'm like, dude, $3,000 to potentially meet your wife.
Exactly.
Like, that's probably the greatest investment you're ever going to have in your entire life. And the one thing that I don't want for a lot of guys that I know is, how do I put this without sounding like an asshole? They life doesn't happen. They don't happen to life. Life happens to them. And the girl that they end up with is not really the girl that they actually want. It's just the girl who they were with at the right time.
Exactly.
And they're not able to like actively, how do I put this? Like, they don't have abundance. And I think as a man, if you don't have abundance in your life, you're not able to truly love a girl because you have no other options. It's like, I know a ton of guys, they're only dating a girl because it's the only girl they can get. And that frame is just not what I want to live out. To where you're like, you might have like, and especially like if you are a girl, you should want your guy, in my opinion, to have other options. So, you know, oh, he chose me. Like I'm actually like, he's with me for a reason. Like he saw things that were different in me, not because I was the only guy he could like, only girl he could get. And in those situations, that's where a lot of guys end up cheating, is because, oh, this is the only girl I could get for a while. You see this a lot in, not to be rude, but like med school students, where it's like, oh, they really didn't like get girls their entire life. But the moment they become a doctor, now society looks at them different. They have more options and they end up leaving the girl that they were with now that they have more options. And so like as a guy, you shouldn't be with a girl because she's the best you could get. You should be with a girl because like, oh, I have a bunch of options. She's the, she's like the best option, not because she's like the only one.
And I'll even counter what Sean just said here, because he brought up the example of essentially a guy leveling up and leaving the woman. I'd actually say, based off coaching in this environment, it's actually quite the opposite. It's usually about 70 to 80% of women will terminate their relationship versus the guy. So this like level up.
You are right about that.
Because dudes don't really get rid of women unless the woman is being really annoying. No offense. Maybe
or maybe there's like situations outside of the control, like long distance or shit like that.
True.
But yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think in those cases, I don't know. I feel like it's because I think, I'm not going to speak like I know why like girls like leave guys or whatever, but I think it's because like they realize like, okay, I could do better. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like truthfully, like.
Yeah, it's tough for the marriage statistics, but it is quite interesting. Now, Sean's been incredibly gracious with our time. We've gone everywhere from business to relationships to actually, real quick on this question, where do you think an entrepreneur in this day and age, someone in the internet money space, should be living? And you feel free to like striate it based on income. Like, hey, if you're making your first 10K, you got to be living here.
Yeah. So I'd honestly say that the main thing that you need to do as a guy or girl starting an online business is you need to get a cohort of people doing the same thing as you are. So for example, when I first started my business and I was a student at Georgia Tech, none of my friends, other than maybe like one, if that, like were doing something similar to me. So joining these like programs where I was able to meet a bunch of other people doing the exact same thing as me, that was great for me. So even if you're like in the middle of like Boise, Idaho, if you can get in these online communities, that might be better for you. And it might help the fact that you're not like the best city in the world. But once you have a little bit of income, you can support yourself. I would greatly recommend traveling to like cheaper cost of living places and like let's say you're in the United States, going to places like Mexico City, Playa del Carmen, Colombia, Brazil, mainly Colombia and Mexico are my main recommendations. Or trying to find like hubs in the United States where there's like more entrepreneurial people. So I know there's like hella people in like Tampa, Scottsdale. So I guess it's like, let's say you're making less than 10 grand a month. I'd definitely look into Medellin because you can live in Medellin for pretty cheap, and there's hella entrepreneurs there. Like tons. Me and you are making like way more than that, and we're like still in Medellin. Let's say maybe you want to stay in the United States and you're making like 5 to 20 grand a month. I like places like Tampa, Scottsdale, Austin, maybe things like that. And then if you're making like good money, you're making like over 30 grand a month, 50 grand a month, I'd look into places like New York, Miami, maybe LA, but New York and Miami for sure. And then let's say you're like not from the US or something like that, like you're in the UK, places like Thailand, Bali, Cape Town. Those are great spots where you can find entrepreneurial people and things like that. Because I love transient cities, transient meaning that there's people constantly in and out, because you're able to just increase your surface area of people you're able to meet. So me being in Medellin was fantastic for me because I was able to meet a shit ton of different entrepreneurs who are all like crushing it, like some making like millions of dollars a year. And just through the nature of that and us being entrepreneurs, we were able to connect and meet each other in an organic way. And then as you make more money, yeah. But like truthfully, I don't think you should move to New York or like Miami unless you're already like I'm thinking of moving down, and I wouldn't want to move down unless I was making like more than 300K a year, to be honest, because like you can't have fun. Like me being in Medellin, we could go to like dinner every day, have a chef, have a fucking maid, have everything outsourced, and like I wouldn't even know how much money I'm spending because I'm making more than that. Like to be honest.
Yeah, it's so nice to have your interview back to back with Nabil's because Nabil is on that like you got to move to Dubai ASAP. And be super Canadian. Uncomfortable.
That's the thing. He's Canadian.
That's exactly what I told him.
Dude, exactly bro, that's my biggest like thing that I'm annoyed about is the tax thing, bro. As a US citizen, like if I wasn't a US citizen, yes, I'd 100% be in Dubai. Because of the taxes, you meet a bunch of people. You only gotta be there 3 months out of the year. So it's fucking fantastic. And also that's why I'd probably knock New York. Because the tax there is so fucking high.
It's 50% close to it.
But so I was talking to one of my mentors about this, and he was like, Sean, you're making good money, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm making good money. And he's like, Sean, do you think this is like you'll make more money in the future? And I'm like, yeah, probably. And he's like, so then there's no better time to move to New York than now. Because like if I'm making like when I'm making like 3 mil a year, I'm not gonna want to be in New York. So now me making like a little like less than that, like I'm like, okay, now if I'm gonna move to New York, this is probably the best time to where I'm not
here. I'm gonna throw some water on this because I'm an anti New York guy myself. Lived there for 7 years. I think there's some great things like dating wise, it's amazing. But exactly. The thing is, there's a lot of money there, but you're mostly surrounded by high ticket wages. You need to work really hard to find like the VC crowd or to find those kinds of guys. A different kind of internet money than we're accustomed to.
Yeah, so that you're 100% right, but that's why like I kind of like the fact that WAP, the office is there. For people who don't know, WAP is like a course platform or like a digital marketplace where you can sell digital products and services. And there's constantly cool people in and out of there who are more the people I want to get connected with. Like, I really don't give a fuck if somebody's like, oh, I'm an engagement manager at McKinsey. I'm like, go suck a dick, bro. Like, I don't know. Not to be
I do partnerships at Toast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not to be a dick, but like, that's not the people I want to connect with. Cause like, I can't, like, for example, like in a network, I want to be able to provide value to you. What value can I provide some McKinsey circle jerk motherfucker? Like, you know what I mean? Or like an investment banker or some shit. I'm like, we're on very different like wavelengths.
Yeah. Trust me, guys. I was at high up on the wagey totem pole, and it's 1,000% better to be in the internet money space. But here, we're getting into the rapid fire questions. Yeah. So what's one bad recommendation you hear in your area of expertise? This could be in like growth consulting, or it could just be like in ads or anything.
I see a lot of people going to growth operating as their very first business, which is growth operating, for people who don't know, is kind of essentially what I do, where you partner with like an influencer or content creator and you run their whole marketing backend. But if you have no experience, you have no case studies, you're not going to be able to get like good clients that will pay you the most. You're just basically going to be like fighting for some poor broke creator, and you don't have the skills required to be able to do a good job. So I honestly, if you're trying to get into entrepreneurship and you're like low on money and you're like, I just need to make money quickly, I would get a sales job, or I would get like a copywriting job or a media buying job and learn specific skill sets at a time. And then once you learn that skill, you can like skill stack and learn an additional skill. So a good example of this is our friend Shanka, where he's like, okay, first I learned closing, got really good at closing, was getting paid well. And now he's like, okay, let me learn how to run ads and book my own sales calls. So now he can run ads, book his own sales calls, and take and close the calls. And now instead of getting 10% commission, he can get 100% of the entire deal.
Yeah, it's one area where I feel like I should have gone back and been like, I should just started working for somebody right from the jump. But hey, sometimes you jump in the deep end. So internet money people, like, you can do it two different ways. Now, if you could only recommend one business book to the audience that's not written by Alex Hormozi, because I'm having to put this on here now these days, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a very good question.
Or what would it be, I should say?
That's a really good question. Like entrepreneur, I'd say 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel.
Oh, great book. Great book.
I'd say 0 to 1 Peter Thiel. That's a banger.
All right. So if you could only follow one channel in health, like a YouTube channel, could be an Instagram, could be a Twitter, what would it be?
Health?
Social media. Yeah.
Kino Body. I'd say Greg O'Gallagher.
Greg O'Gallagher.
I love his fitness frameworks because it's like he's going to show you how to build an aesthetic, good looking physique without having to like, I go to the gym every day because I like it, but not because I need to. So and it's like probably like it's like the 80-20 of it, where he's not going to like have you on like some circle jerk where it's like, oh dude, avoid all the seed oils. He might tell you to do that, but he's going to tell you to do the things that will get you the most results, which is a calorie deficit, a decent amount of protein, and walk a little bit, which is my speed, I guess.
All right. One person in wealth who's not Alex Hormozi.
One person in wealth who I'd want to follow?
That doesn't pay you money. That's not one of your clients.
Okay, that's a good question. Charlie Munger.
Charlie Munger, good one.
Yeah.
All right,
just
relationships.
Rest in peace to the GOAT.
Dude, yeah.
Relationships. That's a good one. I like Sadia Khan.
I like her too.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna say there's like 90% of it. Like I don't like 90% of it's. There's some things that I don't really. Oh, actually, relationships. I'd say maybe Chris Williamson. There we go.
Dude, everyone says that. I might have to throw Chris Williamson out of the.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a good one.
He might become the Hormozi of the relationship question.
For relationships, it's not as much relationships, but it's Dr. David Buss.
Yeah.
So he's more of evolutionary psychology, but that's essentially relationships. Not gonna lie. He's not really like, he doesn't give any prescriptions like say you should do this, but he just presents data of, oh, yo, this is just data on like people and like dating and stuff.
All right. What's the best purchase of under $500 that's made the biggest impact on your life in the last year?
Best purchase under $500. Biggest impact in the past year. Ooh, I'd say I bought a book called Transurfing in 78 Days by Adam Zealand. If you guys are in the internet money space, there's a concept here that almost all of my friends who are like successful at a young age have either read or at least follow the concepts of reality transurfing. It's a really thick fucking book by a guy named Vadim Zealand, where you kind of just go through like how to create your own reality and turn your goals in your head into like your living world. Transurfing in 78 days basically condenses that whole big slop of content into actionable tips that you can take in 78 days. So that book, probably my best purchase. And maybe a journal as well, where I just started journaling.
Now, you kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm going to walk you through this question irrespective. So let's imagine you wake up tomorrow. Everyone forgets about who you are. You've got no more job, zero bank account, zero social media, and all you're left with is your knowledge, a credit card, laptop, iPhone, and an apartment in your city of choosing. Give me like a 30-day plan on how you would rebuild your business.
Okay, cool. So you said I have my knowledge, right?
You got your knowledge.
And you said I have a credit card?
Credit card.
How much is on the credit card?
$20K.
Oh, $20K? Oh, you're generous. Hell yes. Okay, I'd probably there's probably two things I would do. One is if like let's say since I have $20K, I'd probably spend anywhere from like $3 to $5 grand of it on like a community of some sort or like a coach in whatever business model I'm going to go down. Let's say I'm doing agency because that's probably the easiest one to start. I'd probably spend some money to get into a community of like-minded people, which I don't think a lot of people would say, but that's probably the first thing I'd do. And then I would just take my credit card and I would basically just figure out and find some sort of offer to replicate. I would funnel hack some people, which for those who don't know, funnel hacking is finding other people's marketing funnels, going through it, booking a call, talking to their sales team and seeing how you get pitched. And so I'd find like a market that's doing pretty well. And I would just construct an offer and I would just use that credit card, like probably spend anywhere from like $100 a day. I would start at probably $100, $150 a day in marketing ad spend. And I would just try and book myself some sales calls, take them. And then once I get my first close and I close my first deal, I would probably like double the ad spend or something like that. And then just basically the goal of my entire goal is how do I build a system where I can put $1 in and get 3 to 4 back in less than 30 to 60 days. And obviously that will probably break at some point. Like you can't spend like $1 million like off the bat and just get like hella money. But like for your first like to be able to put 10 grand in and get 30 back and then kind of keep doing that over time is probably what I would do. And then also do things like outbound, like cold email content and stuff like that. But the beginning, it'd probably just be ads.
Dude, this is the most tactical response we got to this question. It makes me very happy because some people will be like, you know what, like I'd find something to sell and sell it. And you're like, it's not exactly
the thing. Yeah, 100%. But you want to find something where you can sell and you can just spend money to do the lead generation. Because like honestly, that arbitrage on paid ads and finding that arbitrage is what allows a lot of these internet money people to create cash flow and wealth really rapidly. So a lot of these e-commerce dropshipping dudes, that's exactly how they were able to scale up really fast. Is they're like, okay, I got a line of credit. I can put 20 grand in, get like 40 back or something like that. Now I can take my 40 and keep doing it until the system breaks. So finding that arbitrage is the main thing. And there's still that arbitrage today in Facebook ads. It's less lucrative than it was in like 2018, 2016 and shit like that, but it's still there. And so finding some sort of market like that.
All right. Do you see any area for arbitrage? Nabil mentioned TikTok Shop. Some people have mentioned some other.
Oh my fucking God. It's so nuts. It's why I'm kind of annoyed that I'm not in e-com anymore because I'm seeing like crazy shit in TikTok Shop. So honestly, that might be one of the things I'd do if I was like had no money. I would learn how to do it. It's just I've never done it before. But for those of you who don't know, with TikTok Shop right now, there's an option where you can affiliate for like other TikTok Shop brands. And some of these people are making like 50, 100 grand a month in commissions straight up just from affiliating products on TikTok Shop. And these people don't have like crazy big audiences. They're like literally like TikTok pages with like 20, 30K followers or some shit like that. And then obviously like eventually you can get into owning your own brand and stuff like that. But TikTok Shop for like the next maybe year is a really good opportunity for anybody who looks into it. And I'll actually shout them out. If you guys know, it's a program called Creators Corner. It's run by a guy named Jimmy Farley, Luka Roshenko. I'm acquaintances with them. And they get crazy results, like crazy good results for almost all their students. And it's reasonably priced. It's like $3 or $4 grand. So it's nothing like crazy priced. And so honestly, that might be what I would do if I was like broke and had like 20K in credit cards and needed something to do. I might just rip TikTok shop.
TikTok shop. I mean, it'd probably be a good way to get good at sales, like really fast, like, aside honestly, from taking like direct sales calls.
Yeah, 100%. Learning TikTok shop and learning how to make viral videos that sell, you're learning copywriting. So rather than like doing copywriting, like email copywriting, writing ads for some people, you're just, every TikTok or video you make is essentially an ad. So I'd probably look into TikTok shop. Yeah, I'll just copy the deal.
Yeah. Hey, steal with a smile is what I always say. So let's talk about what's the next big milestone. You have anything like to shout out, like any kind of programs you're putting together or anything?
Yeah. So right now what I'm doing is I have my like growth consulting agency type thing where I partner with creators, already doing 100K a month or more. But what I've realized now is there's only so many creators that are like large doing big numbers. And a lot of the people I'm getting connected with, I've just been helping them for free, are like doing like less than 30 grand a month. So my current plan now is I'm building out a consulting program that's a downsell to my agency for people who are like a great fit for me to go in and do everything for them. I can just coach them and consult them on how to set it up themselves. So I'm building that out as we speak. I already onboarded my first 2 like beta clients. So it's nothing like, it's basically just a one-on-one mentorship where I'll help people out. But I'm not trying to target pure beginners, to be honest. It's only like people I think I can actually like help them out. I'm not trying to promise anybody anything crazy or anything like that yet. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I've been building out. In my current plan, like honestly, my goal in the next year to year and a half is I want to try and pull in like, I want to hit 250 grand a month in revenue. At like 70+% margins and keep healthy margins. So that's my goal, because I've scaled businesses before to like 100 grand a month and stuff like that, but I was never the 100% owner of the business. And the margins weren't like north of 70%, to where it's like, that's kind of what you want to get if you're scaling like an info business or like a service-based business. That's like where you can just get like real, like actual fuck you money. Not that like I was like poor before, but like, you don't see me with like a fucking Ferrari yet. So
not yet.
Yeah.
Yaris soon. When Yaris?
Honestly, give me maybe, okay, that if I'm moving to New York, I probably won't need a Urus, but I want to move down to Miami. I think if I move to Miami, I'll probably move down when I'm like, okay, I have the Urus, I'll move to Miami.
Hell yeah. Hey, we love that. So shout out your social media real quick where people can shoot you a message.
It's Sean J. Matthew. So SeanJMathew on both Instagram, Twitter. And then if you're like a LinkedIn, like minion, hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll hit you up.
Hey, let's go. All right. So if you guys have been listening this far, you either love me or Sean or both of us. So I say give us 5 stars, make a comment. And if you're still listening now, get back to growing your agency. What are you doing? Come on now.